Old Dialect, also known as Azari or Azari, is the extinct Iranian language that was once spoken in Iranian Azerbaijan and Azerbaijan. Some linguists believe the southern Tati varieties of Iranian Azerbaijan, such as those around Takestan, such as the Harzandi and Karingani dialects, to be remnants of Azari. In addition, Old Azari is known to have strong affinities with Talysh.Azeri was the dominant language in Azerbaijan before it was replaced by Azerbaijani, which is a Turkic language. Initial studying. The first scholar who discovered Azeri language is Ahmad Khosravi. He used Arabic, Persian and Greek historical sources to prove that people of Azerbaijan used to speak a language of Iranian family called Azeri before they spoke the Turkic language of the same name. This discovery led him to conclude that the people of Azerbaijan were Iranians who were assimilated by invading Seljuk Turks. Linguistic affiliation. Old Azeri was spoken in most of Azerbaijan at least up to the 17th century, with the number of speakers decreasing since the 11th century due to the Turkification of the area. According to some accounts, it may have survived for several centuries after that up to the 16th or 17th century. Today, Iranian dialects are still spoken in several linguistic enclaves within Azerbaijan. While some scholars believe that these dialects form a direct continuation of the ancient Azeri languages, others have argued that they are likely to be a later import through migration from other parts of Iran, and that the original Azeri dialects became extinct. According to Vladimir Minorsky, around the 9th or 10th century, the original sedentary population of Azerbaijan consisted of a massive peasants, and at the time of the Arab conquest was compromised under the semi-contemptuous term of Uluj, somewhat similar to the Raya of the Ottoman Empire. The only arms of this peaceful rustic population were slings. See Tabari 2, 1379–89. They spoke a number of dialects, of which even now there remain some islets surviving amidst the Turkish-speaking population. It was this basic population on which Babak leaned in his revolt against the Caliphate. Clifford Edmund Bosworth says, "We need not take seriously Mogaddasi's assertion that Azerbaijan had 70 languages, a state of affairs more correctly applicable to the Caucasus region to the north, but the basically Iranian population spoke an aberrant, dialectical form of Persian as well as Standard Persian, and the geographers state that the former was difficult to understand." Igrar Aliyev states that 1. In the writing of medieval Arab historians, the people of Azerbaijan spoke Azari. 2. This Azari was without doubt an Iranian language because it is also contrasted with Dari, but it is also mentioned as Persian. It was not the same as the languages of the Caucasus mentioned by Arab historians. 3. Azari is not exactly Dari. For the research conducted by researchers upon this language, it appears that this language is part of the NW Iranian languages and was close to Talyshi language. Talyshi language has kept some of the characteristics of the Median language. Aliyev states that medieval Muslim historians like al-Baladuri, al-Masudi, Ibn Hawqal and Yaqut al-Hamawi mentioned this language by name. Other such writers are Estakri, Ibn al-Nadim, Hamza Isfahani, al-Mugaddasi, Ugubi, Hamd al-Mustafi and Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. According to Gilbert Lazard, Azerbaijan was the domain of Azari, an important Iranian dialect which Masudi mentions together with Dari and Pahlavi. According to Richard N. Fry, Azeri was a major Iranian language and the original language of Iranian Azerbaijan. It gradually lost its status as the majority language by the end of the 14th century. Historical attestations. Ibn al-Muqaffa is quoted by Ibn al-Nadim in his famous Alfiras as stating that Azerbaijan, Nafav and Rayy Hamadan and Esfahan speak Pahlavi and collectively constitute the region of Fala. A very similar statement is given by the medieval historian Hamza Isfahani when talking about Sassanid Iran. Hamza Isfahani writes in the book Al-Tanbi al-Hadad al-Tashif that 5 tongues, or dialects, were common in Sasanian Iran: Pahlavi, Dari, Persian, Kurzi and Soriani. Hamza explains these dialects in the following way. Pahlavi was a dialect which kings spoke in their assemblies, and it is related to Fala. This name is used to designate 5 cities of Iran: Esfahan, Ray, Hamadan, Nathavaand, and Azerbaijan. Persian is a dialect which was spoken by the clergy and those who associated with them, and is the language of the cities of Fars. Dari is the dialect of the cities of Ctesiphon and was spoken in the king's Dabirian courts. The root of its name is related to its use. Daba, court asterisk is implied in da. The vocabulary of the natives of Balkh was dominant in this language, which includes the dialects of the eastern peoples. Kurzi is associated with the cities of Khuzestan, where kings and dignitaries used it in private conversation and during leisure time. In the bathhouses, for instance. Ibn Hawqal states, "The language of the people of Azerbaijan and most of the people of Armenia is Iranian, which binds them together, while Arabic is also used among them. Among those who speak Al-Farisiya, there are few who do not understand Arabic, and some merchants and landowners are even adept in it." It should be noted that Ibn Hawqal mentions that some areas of Armenia are controlled by Muslims and others by Christians. Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn al-Husayn al-Masudi, the Arab historian, states, "The Persians are a people whose borders are the Mahat Mountains and Azerbaijan up to Armenia and Erin, and Balakan and Darband, and Ray and Tabaristan and Maskar and Shabaran and Georgian and Abasha, and that is Nishabur, and Herat and Marv and other places in land of Khorasan, and Sejistan and Kerman and Fars and Arvaz. All these lands were once one kingdom with one sovereign and one language." Although the language differed slightly, the language, however, is one in that its letters are written the same way and used the same way in composition. There are, then, different languages such as Pahlavi, Dari, Azari, as well as other Persian languages. Al-Moghadassi considers Azerbaijan as part of the 8th division of lands. He states, "The languages of the 8th division is Iranian. It is partly Dari and partly convoluted, and all of them are named Persian." Al-Moghadassi also writes on the general region of Armenia, Aran and Azerbaijan, and states, "They have big beards. The speech is not attractive. In Armenia they speak Armenian, in Al-Ran, Iranian. The Persian is understandable and is close to Khorasanian in sound." Ahmad ibn Yaqubi mentions that the people of Azerbaijan are a mixture of Azari, Ajams and Old Javedanis. Zakaria B. Muhammad Kazvini's report in Athar al-Bilad, composed in 1275, that no town has escaped being taken over by the Turks except Tabriz. One may infer that at least Tabriz had remained aloof from the influence of Turkish until the time of the Mongol invasion, most of whose armies were composed of Turkic tribes. The influence of Turkish increased in the region. On the other hand, the old Iranian dialects remained prevalent in major cities. Hamdallah Mostawafi, writing in the 1340s, calls the language of Mariga as modified Pahlavi. Mostawafi calls the language of Zanjan, the language of Gush-Taspi covering the Caspian border region between Gilan to Shevan, is called the Pahlavi language, close to the language of Gilan. Following the Islamic conquest of Iran, Middle Persian, also known as Pahlavi, continued to be used until the 10th century, when it was gradually replaced by a new breed of Persian language, most notably Dari. The Safarid dynasty in particular was the first in a line of many dynasties to officially adopt the new language in 875 CE. Thus, Dari, which contains many loanwords from its predecessors, is considered the continuation of Middle Persian, which was prevalent in the early Islamic era of Western Iran. The name Dari comes from the word which refers to the royal court, where many of the poets, protagonists, and patrons of the literature flourished. The Iranian dialect of Tabriz. According to Jean During, the inhabitants of Tabriz did not speak Turkish in the 15th century. The language of Tabriz, being an Iranian language, was not the standard Khurasani Dari. Katran Tabrizi has an interesting couplet mentioning this fact. Translation: the nightingale is on top of the flower like a minstrel who has lost her, his hearted bon moans sometimes in Parsi and sometimes in Dari. There are extant words, phrases, sentences and poems attested in the old Iranian dialect of Tabriz in a variety of books and manuscripts. Hamdullah Mustawafi mentions a sentence in the language of Tabriz. The Tabrizians have a phrase when they see a fortunate and wealthy man in uncouth clothes. He is like fresh grapes in a ripped fruit basket. A macaronic poem from Homam Tabrizi, where some verses are in Khorasani Persian and others are in the dialect of Tabriz. Another ghazal from Homam Tabrizi, where all the couplets except the last couplet is in Persian. The last couplet reads, transliteration: Wihar owolodim ya kwash by awi yaran ma wul by ma wiharan. Translation: the spring and flowers and the face of the friend are all pleasant, but without the friend, there are no flowers or a spring. Another recent discovery by the name of Safina Tabriz has given sentences from native of Tabriz in the peculiar Iranian dialect. The work was compiled during the Ilkhanid era. A sample expression of from the mystic Baba Faraj Tabrizi in the Safina, Standard Persian, Modern English. They brought Faraj in this world in such a way that his eye is neither towards pre-eternity nor upon createdness. The Safina contains many poems and sentences from the old regional dialect of Azerbaijan. Another portion of the Safina contains a direct sentence in what the author has called as Zaban-i Tabriz, a sentence in the dialect of Tabriz recorded and also translated by Ibn Baz Azardabili in the Safvat al-Safa. The sentence Gu Harafshata is mentioned in Tabrizi dialect. A sentence in the dialect of Tabriz by Piyazetab Tabrizi addressing the Karakwayanlu ruler Eskandar. Eskandar, Rudam Kashti, Rudat Kashan. The word Rud for son is still used in some Iranian dialects, especially the Laristani dialect and other dialects around Fars. 4 quatrains titled Pahlavi from Khwaja Muhammad Khojani, born in Khojana Khorjan, a village near Tabriz, recorded by Abd al-Qadir Miraghi. A sample of one of the 4 quatrains from Khwaja Muhammad Khojani, 2K is quoted by Abd al-Qadir Miraghi in the dialect of Tabriz. A sample of one these poems, a ghazal and 14 quatrains under the title of Pahlavi by the poet Maghrebi Tabrizi, a text probably by Mamar Esmat Tabrizi, a mystical woman poet of Tabriz, which occurs in a manuscript, preserved in Turkey, concerning the shrines of saints in Tabriz. A phrase Buri Buri, which in Persian means Bia Bia or in English, come, come, is mentioned by Rumi from the mouth of Shams Tabrizi in this poem. The word Bouri is mentioned by Hussein Tabrizi Kabali with regards to the Sheikh Khwaja Abdurrahim Azh-Abadi as to come, in the Harzandi dialect of Harzand in Azerbaijan as well as the Karingani dialect of Azerbaijan, both recorded in the 20th century. The two words Biri and Bara means to come and are of the same root on the language of Maragha. Hamdullah Mustafi of the 13th century mentions the language of Maragha as Pahlavi Mufar. Interestingly enough, the 17th century Ottoman Turkish traveller Evliya Çelebi, who travelled to Safavid, Iran, also states, "The majority of the women in Maragha converse in Pahlavi." According to the Encyclopedia of Islam, at the present day, the inhabitants speak Adar Turkish, but in the 14th century they still spoke Arabicized Pahlavi, which means an Iranian dialect of the northwestern group. Pre-Turkic Azari, the Turkic-Azerbaijani language only began replacing the Iranian Old Azeri language with the advent of rule of the Safavid dynasty, when hundreds of thousands of Kizilbash Turkic peoples from Anatolia arrived into Azerbaijan, being forced out by the Ottoman Sultan Selim I with more to follow. Earlier, many Turkic-speaking nomads had chosen the green pastures of Azerbaijan, Iran and Shrivan for the settlement as early as the advent of the Seljuk dynasty. However, they only filled in the pasture lands while the farmlands, villages and the cities remained Iranian in language and culture. The linguistic conversion of Azerbaijan went hand in hand with the conversion of the Azeris to 12th-Shia Islam. By the late 1800s, the Turkification of Azerbaijan was near completion, with Iranian speakers found solely in tiny isolated recesses of the mountains or other remote areas. The city of Tabriz, the capital of Azerbaijan, maintained a number of distinctly old Azeri-speaking neighborhoods well into the Qajar period of the Persian history. The poet Ruhi Onarjani composed a compendium in Old Azeri as late as the 19th century. It seems the nail was driving into the coffin of the old language in Tabriz by the selection of that city as a second capital of Persia, Iran, in the course of the 19th century, where the Qajar crown prince, Mozaffar ad-Din, resided for nearly 50 years. Comparison with words from other Iranian languages also bores in modern Persian meaning tall and height of a person, for instance, alborz.